Okay. Dear friends, welcome to the panel discussion on Inculcating Values through Prose on day 3 of Asian Literary Society's Navras 2021. As you know, the Asian Literary Society's annual Navras 2021 program is a 9-day festival of art, culture, and literature. Like last year, this year again we are here with one more panel discussion with four eminent literary luminaries. We are truly thankful to these eminent panelists for accepting our request to grace the occasion with their august presence. Now, I would like to introduce our eminent guest. Our first guest is Mr. Yusuf Sharma, recipient of Fellowship of and grants from the Rockefeller Foundation, Ireland Literature Exchange, Truber Foundation, Slovenia, the Institute of the Translation of Hebrew Literature, and Foundation of the Production and Translation of Dutch Literature. Yusuf Ramdas Sharma is a world-renowned Himalayan poet and translator. He has published 10 poetry collections, including The Second Buddha Work, A Blizzard of My Bones, New York Poems, Cracking Cantos, Nepal Earthquake Poems, Nepal Trilogy, Space Cake, Amsterdam, and Annapurna Poems. Currently, Yusuf Sharma sir edits Pratik, a quarterly magazine of contemporary writing. I would like to welcome Yusuf Sharma sir in this panel discussion. Our second panelist is Mr. Ashok Bhargava. Ashok Bhardwa is a prolific poet, an inspiring writer, public speaker, and community activist. Writing in English and Hindi, he has published several collections of his poems. He is the founding president of Writer International Network Canada and GOPI, the group of Poets International. He has been an honored guest to the literary conferences in Turkey, Italy, India, South Korea, and Philippines. He is the recipient of Words Without Borders Peace Award, Washington, USA, Nehru Humanitarian Award, University of British Columbia, Canada, Poet Laureate, Exilpin, Philippines, and Ulusoy Sir Award, Istanbul, Turkey. Welcome, sir, to Asian Literary Society's Navras 2021 program. Our third panelist is Dr. Parikshit Singh. Parikshit Singh MD is a board certified in internal medicine. Dr. Singh received his medical education at Savai Mansingh Medical College in Rajasthan, India, and upon completion of his residency, Dr. Singh relocated to Florida and worked for several years before establishing Access Healthcare LLC in 2001. Parikshit Singh is first of all a poet and philosopher, though not of any academic mold. He has evolved and is still evolving his own philosophy of life and work, which has been articulating in terms of his very personalized poetry and equally personalized medical practice. Parikshit Singh's literature is the articulation of the inner quest for the spirit's perfection in matter and therefore an expression of the eternal struggle of form to attain the supreme fluidity of content and content to attain the perfect expression in form. Welcome, sir, to Asian Literary Society's Navras 2021 program. Let me check if Sudarshan sir has joined. Yes. Now I would like to introduce Sudarshan Kecheri sir. Sudarshan Kecheri sir is the CEO of Authors Press, the publisher of scholarly and creative books. His efforts has made Author Press reach an extensive range of 170 countries. A reticent professional, he has published writers from all over the world. He is an ardent believer of evolve and emerge for universal oneness and propagating meta-language in the humanoid spectrum. Welcome, sir, to Asian Literary Society's Navras 2021. Let me see if our all the panelists are on the screen. Yeah. So, Ashok, sir, your video is not coming. Could you please put it on? So, my first question is with Yusuf Sharma, sir. What is the role of English literature to inculcate human values? This is a very simple question, but I actually wanted to know the answer from you because you are the editor of Pratik magazine and have worked a lot on the English literature. So I repeat the question, what is the role of English literature to inculcate human values?
I mean, I think you mean by English literature, you mean all the literature being written in the world in any
Yes,
language, not just English
yes,
literature. Or
yes.
and with the language English, as it has a major role to play in connecting the worlds and also shaping the economies. I think English literature, with its vital presence in the world, has done a lot to promote humanity, and especially fiction and poetry that's being written currently, which is so diverse and by so different voices, including the spoken word and the written word. I think this is literature, like even in the past, like romantics in England, they try to form this idea of connecting to the common man and speaking the language of common man, even if it was not a common man, to help associate with the humanity. Most of the literature, the French literature, English literature, it especially the romantics came out of this great fervor to bring change, and it was influenced by French Revolution. Similarly, in America, if you talk of Whitman, or in Australia, if you talk of these other poets like Judith Wright and Patrick White, other writers who have been playing vital role, or in India itself, Tagore and Jayant Mahapatra, and all these poets who have been doing a vital role in bringing to the forefront uh, the idea of humanity in their works, especially also in fiction. Like Mulkar Anand was writing about untouchables in Indian context, and English writing in English. Indian writing in English has this major role to bring the lower strata, and also through translations. English literature, the vernacular literatures get translated, or in let's say Indian English, or these writers who come, like a writer like Ben Okri, or writers like from African continent, like Chinua Achebe, who wrote in English, or Wole Soyinka. You see, even from African or Caribbean, like yes, Naipaul. So the whole idea has been to bring humanity to the forefront and bring the common man in the limelight. So in this way, English literature world over has played a vital role in shaping the idea of what humanity is, and also through translations that we get, like poetry of Pablo Neruda, or Octavio Paz, or these Canadian writers, whatever we get, or let's say Robert Frost, or Walt Whitman, or William Carlos Williams, it spreads the idea of celebrating little worlds, celebrating the average man, like Song of Myself, the idea of democracy, idea of freedom and liberty. And so this is English literature has played vital role in causing compassion and evoking the suffering of the common man. This way, you would see
Okay.
that the main rasas that is evoked is karuna. That way,
Yes.
literature has this cathartic, function of identifying with the victim, and purifying you, as in strict or Aristotelian sense. So, basic function of any literature is association, and is uh, catharsis, let's say, associating. You identify with the characters, and most of the characters that writers bring into forefront are the suffering of humanity.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your this insightful reply. Now, my next question is to Ashok, sir. Could you please tell us about the inculcation of values through literature among children? Ashok, sir, you are on mute. Okay,
So,
Ashok, sir, are you able to? Okay, in meantime, I am going to Parikshit, sir, for my next question. How can you inculcate value formation? Parikshit, sir, over to you.
Thank you, Manojji, for inviting me. Thank you, Yutsuji, Sudarshanji, and Ashokji. It's a pleasure to be with you. So the question is, how do you inculcate values? I suppose it's a literary question. You want me to give a literary answer, but
Yes, yes,
overall, so any development of values is a comprehensive approach that a society takes, whether it's through education, through a cultural inculcation of the importance of values, through the society's focus and kind of elevating those with higher values into prominence. Even economic, those who are honest should come out ahead. And literature is really the manifestation of a culture, the society. You may call it the subtle body or sukshma sharir of a nation or a society, where the thoughts, the feelings, the pranamaya, the vital energies, the mind, the manomaya comes out, and how it shapes the youth or the children into being inspired and to choose a more difficult pleasure in life rather than going for the simpler things. As Shelley said, how can it make them go for the creative aspect of life? So, first thing is they need to enjoy it. They need to learn the taste. As Yutsuji said, the rasa. They need to have that difficult rasa. They need to learn to appreciate it. That only will happen if there is a refinement of their senses, their sensibility, they're able to touch the finer things and pick up on them, the sound, the music, the rhythm, the imagery, the meaning, all that as they develop, there is a comprehensive development of the individual. And it can be a little more organized when all the different parts of a human being come together, which in our tradition we call yoga, but you may call it a psychological, comprehensive self development. So these are important aspects. Literature has to be creative, joyous, but at the same time, it should make it a part of learning. And the person should be able to express through literature and through the expression, grow and advance himself or herself. So I think that's would be my take on your question.
thank you, sir. So I will again go back to Ashok sir. Ashok sir, are you able to hear, sir? So I think there is some network problem. So let me go to Sudarshan sir. Sudarshan sir, what is the role of family in inculcating values in a person? Sir, you have to unmute yourself. So let's wait for him to join, I think. Okay, uh, I'll go back to Yusuf sir with my another question. Do you think poetry is also a way of teaching fundamental values?
So, what would you mean by fundamental values? I mean, what does it mean, fundamental values?
Fundamental values, like whatever you can think about. Fundamental is basic courteous. We should have empathy, compassion. These are the values which actually comes in my mind right now.
Yeah, okay. You mean compassion and you mean bringing
Empathy,
joy.
compassion, taking care of the others. Basic morals in the life.
All right. Yeah, I mean, the literature is in Hindi we say sanskar. You know, the
Exactly.
fundamental goal of literature is to provide you sanskar and to understand and your limitations and bring the real, especially middle class. You know that we or lower middle class. This is
Okay.
more related to that. So the sanskara that because instead of belonging to wider, larger, or extra, societal values. literature teaches you to belong to your own world and celebrate it. So celebration of your little world, of your little values that can make humanity or people or your own people, your countrymen or humanity at large happy. Literature has that fundamental role of making you associate yourself with as the growing encroachment of the globalization and belittling you and turning you into a little object. So literature, like if you go to little poetry circles or write in little magazines, it makes you feel proud of what you are and celebrate your world, which you think, which we think is at the center of the world, instead of these big mega multinational companies or projects or organizations that come to crush you or to dominate you. So in a way,
Sir,
this is the literature is a kind of shield against all encroachments, and to
so one question actually I wanted to ask, do we have readers of this type of poetry which are, instilled with the moral values? We see the poems on the love, separation, they actually dominate this space. So do we have readers who like reading poems on the moral values?
poetry survives in little circles, in small little circles in different languages, little small towns and small like I say Malayalam, Kannada, Punjabi, Nepali, small little pockets. So poetry is not a kind of multinational giant. Poetry is a little effort against these bigger notions to protect your sanctity. So in a way, that's a fundamental value. It makes you respect self-respect, evaluation of your own world, and celebration in your own world. These values, which ultimately stem from compassion for your own world and your people around you. So this is a fundamental role, especially poetry plays, because you belong to small groups and you think that's worthy enough of being portrayed as a large scale. Like I celebrate my Himalayan world, which is small and little and which is fast fading under the encroachment of the modern world. So the sanctity, the beauty, the silence of the ecosystems which are so fragile, the preservation and a focus on those values is what my poetry attempts to aspire. So but basically poetry is an attempt to, as you say, to preserve the fundamental values of love, compassion, silence, isolation, of celebration of your world, nature, ecology. So this is all poetry, and your identity and preservation of your world and yourself as you are.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, before asking my second question to Pakshi sir, one question actually came in my mind. So, our country, India, I'm just taking an example. So, it's a kind of a quite contrast here. We have extremely refined people here also, and also we have a large number of people whose living standard is similar to some poorest country of Africa. So, the people who are actually struggling to meet their basic needs, how difficult it is to teach them, to convince them, even talk about the moral values and these things to them. So those people who are basically struggling, they are more prone to getting affected by the contamination of the society. Parikshit sir.
Is that for me? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I
Yes sir.
asked
Yeah,
you too.
yeah,
So,
it was for
see,
you.
one thing we have to understand is literature has not much to do with being rich or being poor. In our villages, even the poor people can appreciate, even today, they can appreciate literature, but it has to be brought up in a way that is easy for them. I mean, if you look at the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Ramcharitmanas, they're great works of poetry. Kabir Das ji, Mirabai, Surdas ji, they were great poets. So that is literature. It is literature that was simple, that people could approach. Yes, Ramayana and Mahabharata are not simple, of course. They're in Sanskrit, but simplification of the literature has happened in different ways. Jayadev's famous work on Radhaji and Sri Krishna. And then, of course, in our own, each national language had its own poets, but also poets who were rooted in our own times. Look at Tagore, as Yuyutsuji mentioned, Ghalib. I mean, you don't have to be rich to appreciate it, but you're right. We have a difference of sensitivity, the elitism of refinement, and that is unfortunately one, poverty, two, education, third, culture, the way even our education system is a very rigid system. It creates machines out of people rather than allowing the children to learn to explore themselves, become creative, become sensitive, start becoming aware of themselves and aware of others, without which true values don't come. Values don't come that I tell you to be honest and tell you to be nice to people. Values have to come when inwardly you feel that it's the right thing to care about others. When you take care of a plant, when you take care of an animal, when you take care of your neighbor, it has to be innate, it has to flow naturally. Now, if we can take the child to that level of sensitivity and allow the child to express himself, don't create blocks for the child, then it can happen. But our education system goes by rote, makes them learn things, cram things, and it's very suppressive of a child's creativity and natural flow of energy. So, coming back to your question, we have a major disparity, rich and poor, yes, but also coarseness and refinement. Poor can be very refined, they can pick up things, and the rich can be very coarse. You know, you can see the nouveau riche, people who have become rich, who can be the crudest people around in the world, most insensitive. And that sensitivity is something that doesn't have much to do with poverty or riches. However, the goal for our society is to take us all to a point where this poverty, of course, goes away, and there's a baseline education for everyone, but also the culture, right? Someone like a Tagore being heard in everyone, someone like a Mirza Ghalib being appreciated by the common man. It can be done. You go to the mushairas, you go to the sessions for Shiro Shairi. People do appreciate art. But I think if we can, the new generation, if it can learn to be artistic, and I'm not talking about being artistic, write poetry. Everyone doesn't have to write poetry, but have that fineness, the subtlety of mind and feeling, then we would have done something nice for our country.
Okay, great, sir. So now I'd like to ask the another question because this question actually came impromptu in my mind. So I asked
Uh,
secondary school. So when I studied from an ICC board school, and we had to read, as you like it, a romantic kind of novel or drama. So I'm not sure how it was related to the student of a senior secondary school. So what do you think is the criteria of choosing literature for students in senior secondary school?
so there are few things about literature that we should understand. The primary purpose of literature is joy and pleasure. It's creativity. It is coming out of some deep level where you are able to let energies flow through you, whether it's coming from the mind, the gut, whether it's coming from very emotional states. But the primary, it's a difficult pleasure. Art is a more difficult pleasure, as Shelley said. So to leave easier pleasures to move to a more difficult pleasure. The child or the student should be able to enjoy the literature instead of cramming literature, which is what how we were taught. We had to pass an exam, so we had to read Wordsworth, we had to read Ozymandias, we had to read these poems, and we had to memorize them and pass the exam. That is not the way to appreciate literature, right? So through that creativity, the natural ability of a child to enjoy these some difficult passages, As You Like It is a great play, very funny, one of the best plays of Shakespeare, and shows his humor. And and Shakespeare is probably one of the best writers in world literature, and the only writers who are equivalent to Shakespeare as Sri Aurobindo has pointed out, is Valmiki, Homer, Vedavyasa. This is at the top, the pinnacle. Now you're reading as you like it, but then the joy of the language, the sound, the situation, how he has brought in, even after 600, 500 years, right? 1590s he wrote this, as you like it, or I think maybe the first 10 years of 17th century, maybe 1605, 1604. But how that language still carries that energy that you can even feel, you can laugh and understand and appreciate the amazing beauty, right? So literature should bring out that joy. Through that enjoyment, through that creativity comes refinement. Through that comes learning. Shakespeare has created amazing characters, which is probably one of the most characteristic aspects of Shakespeare. He has created characters as nobody, very few people have done it. Maybe the Mahabharata, maybe Ramayana, Homer. Each character so different, and that is the beauty of Shakespeare. Now, whether it's Hamlet or Othello or Julius Caesar, can imagine the creativity of this great artist who could make each person alive. So, as you like it, once you start appreciating the beauty of it, suddenly it's very inspiring. Good literature inspires you, elevates you, transforms you. As D.H. Lawrence said, it must change your blood, right? Good literature is that which changes your blood. So, if that can happen, then the child is hooked on to literature for life. He or she will never leave literature, whether it's Hindi or Urdu or English, and he has the ability to pick and develop the sensitivity and grow in his own manner and find his own natural expression. If we can do that, then that is what kind of literary education we should give our children. So, can we pick the literature that can be fun? As You Like It is a great play, but then the teacher also has to make it fun for you. And you realize in the Macaulay system of education that we kind of suppress the naturalness of the child instead of bringing it out. We try to limit instead of freeing up the child. So good literature is fun. It's a cognitive and emotional complex where it's mind, heart at the same time, and you're able to look at very complex metaphors. You're able to look at the similes, the sound. Think of the mantra in Sanskrit. I mean, what an elevated, advanced way of creating sound for us is the sound itself starts changing us. Look at the different meters, the rhythms, the prosody of different lines in language. So I think the child can learn all that, but first they have to learn to enjoy it, and it should come from within that I want to read this myself, I want to write it, I want to critique it. So I'll turn it over back to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Sudarshan sir, my next question is to you. Can you please unmute yourself? So I think he has lost connection. Sudarshan sir, are you there? Okay. So a common question to both of you, Yusuf sir and Parikshit sir, over to you, Yusuf sir. Is compassion learned or inherited? Describe something you have learned from caring for or helping others. Today is Karuna Ras, the third day of Navras, so we wanted to ask this question to you. Is compassion learned or inherited? And describe something you have learned from caring for or helping others.
You want me to answer this?
Yes, sir, for you, sir, Yusuf sir.
Okay, it's but natural that it's humans have compassion. Animals don't have to that degree because of our extra faculties. I mean, the law of jungle of tooth and claw. They say that survival of fittest is not the we are not made to look like that because we have this. The only thing that kind of separates us from animals is compassion. that we understand others' suffering. We can cry. We can associate with others. So that's a fundamental difference. And I think this is one difference that makes humans very special, that they care for others. And so this, of course, is natural in human being. But then you have to inculcate it. You have to earn it. You have to develop it. You have to evolve as a human being. Or you can easily, as the classic notion goes, you can easily digress into an animal. So, the ancient idea of metamorphosis of Ovid, or our karma, that you can have good karma or bad karma depending on how much compassion you have, how much you can evolve as a human being. If you can help others, or be a noble person, the only way to become noble is to have some compassion on others, and to understand humanity in its depth. That's what Buddha did. That's what Christ did. That's what all great men or all poets and writers try to accomplish, to understand the diverse colors of compassion. Like you can say.
Great, sir. Great, great, sir. Thank you so much. Parikshit sir, the same question for you. Is compassion learned or inherited? And describe something you have learned from caring for or helping others. As a doctor, you might have helped so many people in your career. So, could you please reply my this question on Karuna Rasa?
So let me break this question down into two parts. Let's talk about whether compassion is learned or inherited. In my opinion, it is both. When you have a baby that is born, the child is growing, you will see that there is a natural empathy the child has. Child doesn't even have a sense of self. Everything connects with them. If someone else is hurting, the child will pick up the vibrations. If there is anger or something not right in the atmosphere, the child will become uncomfortable. And we've always often seen that. If things are harmonious and calm and everybody's caring and loving for each other, the child is peaceful. If there's anger around or hatred around, the child will pick up and becomes very uncomfortable, starts crying. Sometimes, and having been with little children, if they're in a place that they don't like, something about that place they don't like, they will not be comfortable until you move them somewhere else. So there is a natural sensitivity. A child is very friendly, loving, caring to animals. If you guide them gently, that natural flow with plants, with that sensitivity to others. If you see children play with each other, it's such a natural thing. It's one of the most beautiful things, that when children meet in the playground, they're just playing with each other, and it's that connection with each other without the hard walls of the ego, um, make them. That's why children are innocent and pure, right?
Yes.
We children are um, Brahman's roop, right? What do we call Ishvara roop when children
Ishwara.
are born, right? So they take that purity, the innocence, the complete tabula rasa. There's no baggage, there's no memory, there's nothing, no history, and so their heart is more open, and of course they're tender, they're vulnerable, they're not refined, but they have a natural sensitivity. Unfortunately, our culture and our society hardens them and creates barriers of ego, barriers of me and you and us and them and my religion and their religion and my country and their country and my way of doing things and your way of doing things. So these barriers, who taught them? We have created these divisions. So we create that now. Then that means, can you learn compassion? Learning compassion is, again, a whole life, a journey of a life, where you start shedding, you become one, you become sensitive, you become aware of things that are making you dull and making you hard. And Krishnamurti had something very beautiful to say about it. You don't try to become compassionate, you become aware. In the very process of becoming aware, of your insensitivity, of your hardness, of your cruelty, of your violence, there is some opening where there's a possibility. And he was beautiful. He created, Rishi Valley schools where children were not sent in classes to cram up things and read those big books. Children in the morning would sit and come out and watch the sun come out, just appreciate the sun. Each child was given a plant to take care of or a pet. And in the evening, after the day, they would sit and just watch. Everyone would just quietly watch the sun go down. Now, that gives the child space, the ability to do his or her own thing. Let that energy flow without us blocking it and making machines out of our beautiful children who are pure and innocent. Now, the reverse is as we get older, how do we drop all this? And the primary solution that our culture gives is chitta, chetana, becoming aware. And as the awareness gets bigger, as the heart opens, right? They say, open the anahata, open your heart center. As it opens, you start feeling the other. Your ego is no longer the barrier. The same thing like we talk about the Buddha. The Buddha takes you to a process of dropping one by one all the connections, all the things you're carrying, so that all these nibbana, right? You stop dropping everything that is not true, that is false, and then karuna or compassion comes of its own, because that is your natural state, which you have blocked because of all these all this bad conditioning that we have put ourselves under. So that is what I would say, whether compassion is learned or inherited. Caring for others. See, I've been very fortunate that I studied in medical school. I'm a physician. Even now I see patients. And very briefly, because I want others to have a choice to talk, very briefly, if you learn a few things. One is the art of listening. You just listen to the patient. You don't interfere. You don't interrupt. And that itself is a huge thing. To just be able to listen with your whole being, paying full attention, is itself a transformation. You're no longer the same if you can start listening completely. Being vulnerable, being not, okay, I'm the king, I'm the boss, I will take care of you. No, being a human, engaging with the patient as a human, engaging with them as an equal, because you're not sitting with a stick. Because otherwise they won't open to you. You will fail as a doctor. And then that healing, if you can bring the healing to the patient, you may not be able to give a medicine that cures them, but to be able to smile, to be able to joke, to take their mind away from their suffering, to make them feel someone is there for me. That itself is the beginning of healing. And there's a beautiful word in our Jainism, mudite. Mudite means to enjoy the joy of others. Means I'm happy if you're happy. That itself gives me the joy. That is a very beautiful thing if one can experience it. So to take us to a higher level of enjoyment is when you can say, by caring for the other, I get more joy than just by being self-centered. Then you have started maturing. Of course, as a doctor, we get paid for the services we provide. But if someone cannot pay, are we able to take care of the person without focusing on the financial return? And that is the true learning that medicine has given me. I think the humility, the ability to just reach the level of that 90-year-old who's just like a child, is returning to childhood, and be able to touch him without reacting and forcing and acting like a judge or a policeman. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, sir. Sudarshan, sir?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I have a couple of questions for you. What is the role of family in inculcating values in a person, and is it possible to have a morality in a free market?
So the thing is, I have to link the flow. Until unless you will not connect the flow, the evolving mood of for the system. That is a society. I am seeing it. Human is confined to divided society. Now we emerged into a global society. In that global society, we have to address as a beginner for a beginning. That is a values, that's a culture. As a beginner for a beginning, we have to welcome. That is the reason because the way we evolved, until unless we will not talk about the link of our evolving things, which is physicentric to phonocentric to scriptocentric to digicentric. In the phenomenal time, we are in the phenomenal time. The role is very important. What we are talk, what we are consuming, what we are addressing is very important. As a beginner for a beginning should be as a beginner for a beginning, because the scriptocentrically, the scriptocentric paradigm given us so much input with confusion. In that confusion, we have to evolve for a beginning, as a beginner for a beginning. Everything is, commodity oriented business we are having. That kind of human society, we carved it, molded it, and shaped it. We have to come out with something as a beginner for a beginning. That is the reason the phenomenon in front of us, and we are calling it as a corona or whatever, corona call or whatever. But obviously, it is how we can invent ourselves for further exploration, the invisible exploration. That is very essential assignment for writers. The way you are motivating in this phenomenal time, the digicentric assignment you are given to all of us, and you are participating, and the entire world is looking at us. What kind of input we are giving to the society. A society is not confined. Society is not having the boundary or something like that. We are already a citizen to netizen. In netizen, digicentric exercise to be executed, because hardly any, we will go to this publication or the literary affair, the way Asian Literary Society is consistently contributing, and these are the things. The way you motivated people and motivating people and executing in the digicentric format, and all of us are here, and everybody is contributing its own way, and talking, predicting the discussed about the values of the scriptocentrically evolved, oriented, and nurtured. Now we have to take up to another paradigm, a paradigm for the human race as a whole. That is the reason the phenomenon in front of us, how we can explore, not the way corporate oriented or something left for someone will come and do it. We have to invent according to the time and circumstances. That kind of literature should evolve, that kind of sensibility to be addressed for to the society and make the society sensible. That is a inculcating nature, the culture. Culture is not the orientation of scriptocentrically driven and oriented, which 99% is absolutely confusion. Now, without any confusion, we have to start as a beginner for a beginning to evolve, to catch up the paradigm in the right manner. That might be the reason. And we are in the fear psychosis. We should not be in fear psychosis. We have, whatever the circumstances coming to us, we should not bother about all these things. So that kind of mightiness we have to explore from the system, a system which is already in front of us. None will come to you, because they're all hypocrisy oriented partisan approach we are having it. We have to invent the way you are invented and motivating us to conquer the digicentric. I'm there as Asian Literary Society founder. I'm a techie. Obviously, the future is belong to a techie. Everything is a techie. Husband, wife, and children is a technology of the supreme. If that is a reality, this technology is also very important for us. Until unless we will not realize the situation which is very important to human race as a whole. So so many things, revelations in the medical profession, Pradeep might be knowing it. So many revelations are coming. So, direct vaccine and indirect vaccine. Now, what is direct vaccine? Direct vaccine might be corona affected people, and they are surviving. Another is manufactured from the human factory, that is indirect vaccine. Now, American study is saying those who have coronavirus and survived, no need to have the vaccine. I don't know whether it is correct or not. This kind of information is coming. Now, whatever it may be, we are having to, for the last 2 years, exploring the invisibles in our own. But that is the way we have to have as a beginner for a beginning, and we have to generate the mindness in our carrying body. Manoji, I think that's enough for this inculcating culture and nurturing aspects of our society. I hope this is enough for.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to request Yusuf, sir, to please recite a poem loosely related around compassion, today's rasa.
Thank you very much. It's very wonderful talk, and I'm enjoying the whole thing so much. Sorry for a short break. There was a connection problem. And my
It's okay,
apologies.
sir.
I was
Hello.
especially to Prikshit sir and Sudarshan sir, and this has been a wonderful morning.
Oh, virtual
Thank you
mode.
very much.
Are you going back from a shelter identified
Can you ask him to
oh
Sudarshan, sir.
shine?
Sudarshan, sir. Yeah, Yusuf, sir is reciting a poem.
Is it my role?
No, Yusuf, sir is about to recite a poem on compassion.
all
See,
right?
this is not confined to compassion. Compassion is what? Compassion to accept the system. That is compassion. Whatever the situation may be, that is a compassion. And everything very, very, very soothingly, narrated by Pradeep Singh. I heard about him because when I was in this screen, and wonderful approach he's having it because the because I am having always a society which is an emerging society, an evolving society for further take up. That is why
Okay.
compassion is what we have to understand what is the mood and taste of compassion. So
Yes,
so
sir.
that is what I wanted to recite on this, if you permit.
Yes, sir. Actually, Yusuf sir has just started the poem, so we'll come back to you after Yusuf sir finishes his poem.
Okay, all right.
Okay, okay, okay. Yusuf sir, please.
all right. I want to read this poem from my book called Space Kick Amsterdam. You know, I
Great.
wasn't traveling, when I was just at home for many years, and I was afraid to travel. I thought, who would look at me, who would listen, if who would want to listen to a poet from the edge of the world, the Himalayas or Punjab. So as I started traveling, I learned that the people are out there and they want. There are people. There's a bank of compassion, in the world. And so I went to UK, went to Europe, went to America, Canada, and I found people nice to me, out of the way nice, because someone else was nice to them in Nepal or India, and they remembered that, and they were very very nice to me because they had been compassionately treated somewhere else by someone else whom I didn't even know. So we have this invisible bank of generosity and compassion, and this poem is for all those who were kind to me because someone else was kind to them. This to your bank of generosity and compassion. And poem is called Someone Left a Pen. Someone left a pen. On the forsaken table of a restaurant, Zavate Reuter, Starbucks, Willie's Bar, someone left a pen for me. Someone left a feather, and notes scribbled in a language illegible along the stony pavement of a dome, Milan, Rome, Cologne. Someone left a page from a flash of a naked conch shell on an abundant shore, Den Haag, Bremenhaven, Southampton. Someone waited for me at night in the garden on a white bench, naked, naked like white cat, facing the listless sheen of a green pond. Someone left an email address, a card, a name on a scrap of paper in a city bus, or anguish on the screeching brakes of an underground train. Someone kissed my dark eyes in sleep as she laid her silvery head on my shoulder, a book in her hand, Midsummer Night's Dream. Someone left warmth of a sun from her lungs, a warm mouth, zyka of a center tongue, Dutch, Deutsch, English, French. Someone offered a bottle of wine, a cigarette, a twig of cannabis, pod of a familiar fragrance, aroma of a forgotten paradise, whiff of a wet warmth of a burning bush. Someone left a pen on the palpable tables of my travels. I leaned to pick it up and place it in the black bag of my memory.
Very nice, sir. Very nice, sir. Very nice. So, Sudarshan, sir, please recite your poem.
Being you alone serving the flow, assignment after assignment, to command for a systemocracy. Oh, being, that is my compassion.
Very nice,
Thank you.
very precise, and very thoughtful also. Thank you so much, sir. Parikshit, sir, a poem on compassion from your side.
This is a poem that I wrote about India, and hopefully it will show the connection with the people, though it's more in metaphor and uh, what you may call synecdoche. There was a girl I loved once. Her smile was sky, her touch was earth, and everywhere I turned, with eyes of blood, I saw her face. And I saw in her eyes a night full of stars and the forehead of moon. And I longed to hold the limbs of space as I heard in her laughter a giggle of waves. And I saw in each face of the innumerable men that toiled lonely in quarries of sun the hidden assurance of a mother's gaze. And I felt the tears of countless children that welled in my throat and dried in my eyes, unseen. And I held them as my own in the widening stillness as I cried alone in close embrace. And I see her smile even now with waves of gold in mustard fields and huts of neem with floors of clay. And I feel her presence in the sparkling grain as my heart is replaced by a silent throb. And I see her now, smiling as I, and her globe of glow in her lover's place, and I tear no more, breathing in her temple the sandal's incense, the lotus fragrance. I know her play. There was a girl I loved once.
It was very nice poem, sir, and I liked the two lines in beginning where you have talked about the sky and earth. I simply loved that. It was very nice, strong metaphors you have used in the poem. Awesome, sir. Thank you. So I would now request Yusuf sir to recite a poem of his choice.
All right, one more.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So I would, I would read this poem of compassion and peace, which is not
Okay, sir.
possible because peace can be very or compassion can be very tricky idea. I was at Lord Buddha's birthplace in Lumini, and when I went there, I found that a cat has just killed a pigeon, and its feathers were floating on. on the waters, where Maya Devi took bath before giving birth to Lord Buddha, Emperor of Peace. So this poem called Lumbini, which I wrote when visiting uh, Lord Buddha's place. Yes. So poem is called Lumbini. Lumbini is where Buddha was born, from my book Lake Wave and Horse. And Lumbini. Green pond's face is scarred with stains of blood, as silence rustles in the banyan tree, whose branches carrying a bird of ill omen shake over the tremulous pond, quivering from an unknown agenda of violence. I circle the pond, expecting some survivor to emerge any moment out from the waters where Maya Devi took bath before giving birth to the world's Emperor of Peace. Wind bellows in the ferns of the blazing fields of Tarai, desperate call of a nightingale, probably dying of a sunstroke, shrieking like a widow on the simmering rim of high noon. Beside the lonely Ashoka pillar, a wild cat licks her paws clean of the blood of freshly prayed pigeon and prepares her siesta near the damp edge of a water well. In a niche dug in the mossy trunk of a cool banyan tree, a sleeping Buddha lies, shedding tears from his half closed lotus eyes. A turtle, along with her three babes, alert on the slippery steps of the queasy pond, raises her serpent spectator neck above her safe shelf to watch a fluffy pile of pigeon feathers floating like a tiny pagoda of peace on the bleeding waters of Lumbini. Thank you. From Lake Fame and Horse, the book on Annapurnas.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a very beautiful poem and I thoroughly enjoyed listening it. Thank you again. Now I would like to request Sudarshan sir to please recite a poem of his choice. Sudarshan sir?
Yeah, yeah. Please.
Yeah.
All embracing the soul spirit of participatory existence beyond confined faith and rituals, liberate us forever, O being.
So I really like your, couple of poetry in couple of lines. We have been, seeing it for last many years, and I really love the way you write these things, and you have maintained your unique styles. So now I'd like to request Parikshit Singh sir to recite the last poem of today's event. Any poem of his choice. It would be
Well,
good if he any poem which you would like to share recite for us today.
this is the same theme of the girl I loved once. I found a tiny lamp where my heart used to be,
Wow.
and I found it without fire, as a little glow only. It flickered as a firefly, turning all blood into the light of my heartbeat, and it throbbed insistently as a distant star, shrouded with night within me. All the paraphernalia were only wrappings of shadow around its body, as a Chinese lantern wearing a skeleton of paper glimmers translucently, the light within light. Like a beacon in storms, a lighthouse in sea, as one moves nearer, growing more steady. I held it as a prayer in cupped hands and placed it silently upon your altar. awaiting your descent in image and stone, for someone to gather this temple in her sun. I have left the silver glow, the flame that I am, as a device of secrecy beyond frame and foil, a means to stay beyond alcove and oil, and even when gone in this altar of stone.
Very nice, sir. Very nice. Beautiful poem it was, sir. Thank you to all the panelists for this wonderful session. It was indeed a great experience interacting with all of you. I also want to extend special thanks to our audience. I see a lot of comments from them. So the recording of this session will be uploaded on our official YouTube channel very soon. So I again thank to all of you. Thank you, Parikshit sir, Yusuf sir, Sudarshan sir, and also Ashok sir who was joining us intermittently. So thank you to all of you for your time and presence and participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Manojji, organizing such a wonderful digicentric program in this phenomenal time. And there is no words to express gratitude to you, Asian Literary Society, and the team members to organize
Thank
such
you
a
so much,
wonderful
sir.
program.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir. Thank you, sir.